Okay, welcome back. Let's get into the code now a little bit. Again, if I click on my button here for display students, let's look and see exactly what we're doing. Number one, I have this thing called str select. This is going to be a string in which I will put my select statement, okay? Because we're going to actually create a string for that, okay, to actually get that working, all right? We'll do that just about any type of query that we're going to be doing against the database, from inserts, deletes, updates, joins, and so on. All right. I don't know why I have it equal to null values. Obviously, when you declare something, it's already equal to null values. But for sake of example, there it is. These three pieces right here is really cut and paste for you. Okay. Because this is what will be used where we're going to place our select statement in our OLE command piece. This is, again, we're creating objects from our OLEDB class. You don't need to know too much why and all this kind of stuff, but all we need to know is that we're going to use the OLEDB command line to place our select statements. Then what we're going to do is use the OLED reader to actually get the result set. We'll put that into this thing called a source table, and we will go ahead and loop through that. And I'm sorry, yeah, this will be the result set. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this little table, this DT piece. You'll see how this works here in a second. This new table, data table, is part of the OLEDB, okay? And this is what we're going to loop through as part of our reader, okay, as we go through it. Let's see if this all makes sense when we get through it. In a lot of cases, this should be cut and paste for your program. So when I click on the display piece, I don't have this modularized in any way, okay? So you may want to modularize it based upon how the program should read. But in this case here, what we're going to do is we're going to open the database. I'm going to call from that mod, once again from here, okay? This mod utility, I'm going to call the Open Database Connection Server. It's going to take the connection string that we defined up here, okay, in our mod, and it's going to execute it, okay? It's going to execute everything. It's going to return if it's good or not. If it returns false, that means we have a database error. And then we'll display this message box.show that we have this database error, okay? And we'll close the program. Obviously, if we can't open the database, we're not going to display anything, so I'm going to immediately close the program. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to call it and so on. What should this be in your program? Cut and paste. I want you to understand these things. I want you to look at the code and make sure you understand. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend you debug the code and watch it flow through as you're doing this, okay? Maybe we'll have some time here. We can do it ourselves, okay? The next thing we're going to do is select. I'm going to build that select statement. Remember I told you in those steps we need to build our query? Well, I'm going to do a very simple one here to get us started. We'll get more complex as we move forward, where I'm going to select asterisk from T students, okay? So all I'm doing is bringing back all the columns and all the rows from team students that are actually in the database. And as I told you, I pre-populated that database with about 4 or 5 different students. All right? What I do is I put that in str select. What we're going to do is we're going to create this command. Okay, again, this is how it works in OLEDB. Every language has its own little nuances. This is how it works. We're basically going to say, using the string and using the connection that we have, I got this command, and it's going to be, we're going to take all of this and create this brand new object called CLM select. Does that make any sense at all? Okay, and again, I'll show you different examples of all the other types of queries, but for the most part, we build it and we put it into this new object called CMD select. Basically tells the OLD class or object what we're doing and where it's at and so on, and how the whole thing kind of works. And then what we do is we take that CMD select and we execute it. This is actually going to be a method of this particular object. So in this case, we're going to execute the reader because, execute reader. Yeah, what we want to do is actually execute it, and it's going to bring back a result set. It's going to bring that result set back, okay, into this DR source table. Okay, so whatever is in there, it's going to bring it back. Then what I'm going to do is I went ahead and pre-populated a little bit of the items added, a roster for all my students, And I got into looping through, look at this loop here, I'm looping through this result set. I'm taking this object, it's an object here, I'm going to take this object, this source table, remember we declared that up here as an object, okay, that's where the result set will be, okay, and I'm going to do a dot read. So read is kind of a term we deal with when we talk about reading a row or reading a record or so on, right? Okay, we read it. So we read or we write. We either read from a file or we write to a file, or we read to from a table or result set, or and possibly in database worlds we don't write, we actually insert. Okay, so the word read says I'm going to read the very first result. Okay, again, think about our result set. Our result set is going to basically bring back, let's go ahead and execute this real fast over here. Whoops, sorry. Okay, if I took this right here, okay, and brought it over to my database, and let's see, I'll come down here and do a quick query right here. I have my database working, and I executed this. As you know, it creates this result set sitting down here. That's what that's called. Well, it's going to do the exact same thing in my program. It's going to execute this, and this result set is going to be returned to the str, where am I at? Str source table. So those rows that we just saw here, all those rows is going to be returned to the result table. And then this dot read is going to basically going to read the first one. Okay, so if we come back here, it will read James Jones and so on. And then when we loop back around again, it's going to read again to Sally Smith. We'll loop back around, it will read to Jose Hernandez, and then to Lon Kim, and then it'll end. Okay, so let's go look at that loop real fast. It's going to, while the DR source read, this is basically saying, while it's true, meaning while I have something, I'm going to do this. If it reads it and it can't find anything, meaning it's at the end of the result set, it will fall out of the while loop. And as you see what I'm doing here, I added a little space in there for my my list box. And then I did first name, last name, address, city, state, all the way through. Okay, and look how I reference this. I reference this from my DR source table and the actual name of the column. These must match the name of the column that you have in the database. Okay, it can't sort of match, kind of match, almost there. You must match it word for word, letter for letter, or you'll get an error. It'll say I can't find that column. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so if I sit back and I run this, once again, like I said, that's exactly what it's doing. It's taking that result set that we had here. This is what came back. And then you see what I'm doing. I basically took it and I just kind of formatted it. Nothing fancy, but a good first step, right? This is where the roster of all students came into play, right? Right here. It got in here, put that space right there. See it right there? Let's see, I'm going to come down here a little bit more. Then what it did was it got first name, tabbed over, and it brought back the result set from DR source table where the column name is first name, last name, address, city, state. I added another, looks like I added another space there, which is right here, and I added those little lines right there, just kind of separate them. And it looped back up, added another space, did the whole thing all over again. So nothing fancy, nothing that's going to make you $1 million right now, but it's our first step toward doing so. And that's the big piece there. Couple things. Let's look at this. If I step back and I did come here and I did fat finger this, okay, I put 2 R's in here. Let's see what happens. So I come in here and I do this. I got STRR state, okay? What happened here? Here's what's happened. It came in here. If you see how this code works, I have this big try catch around it. Try catch is a wonderful tool, especially dealing with external files, okay? Things that are external to us, all right? So I actually wrap almost all my code in a try. And so what happened here was it went right to the catch and it said, I got this little error message, EX message, because it did not find that. It wasn't a very clear message, okay? So be aware of that. But more than likely what happened is if you see an error message pop up just like this, if you cut and paste this code and modify it yourself and you get an error message, it fell to the catch. Now, what do we do about that? Well, we got to go and debug it, okay? Because you don't quite know maybe where the problem happened throughout this code. But if you debug it in F11 through it, one piece at a time, you'll see where it falls to the catch, and you'll be able to then centralize in on the line that is actually bad. Does that make sense? Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more video for you, all right? And what we'll do is we'll come back now that we have this thing ran, but what we're going to do is debug this thing a little bit more. I want to show you the flow of this and how it all works. I want to make sure you completely understand that, okay? And then we'll play around with it one more time and create this error, and you'll see how this actually works. So when you get to your programs, if you have any issues, you'll know how to debug, all right? I think I brought this thing back, and boom. But if you get it working, it's pretty cool.